Well, chaos in Minneapolis as protesters call for Mayor Betsy Hodges' resignation.
So you hear me now? We do not want you as the mayor of Minneapolis, and we're asking you to resign.
The protests erupting at a press conference after it was announced that the police chief was stepping down after a controversial cop shooting. But our next guest says Democratic leadership may be to blame for all of it. Joining us now is a contributor for The Hill and AlphaNewsMinnesota.com and author of the blog Minnesota Conservatives, John Gilmore. John, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
You got it. Well, so a lot of people see this confrontation at the press conference with Mayor Hodges, and that's all they see. Unpack the situation in Minneapolis right now for us.
Well, there's a lot going on, to be candid, and what you're seeing with the protests taking over the press conference of Mayor Hodges is sort of the culmination of identity politics. In Minneapolis, the only kind of politics that really is engaged in is identity politics. And so you have various competing factions, each who insist that they're the most oppressed somehow, and they vie for supremacy within the as you know, Pete, in Minnesota, we have the DFL. It stands for Democrat Farmer Labor, and that's the title that we give Democrats here in the People's Republic of Minnesota. It's become something of a national and now an international embarrassment. The unfortunate and tragic death of Justine Domand has thrust Minneapolis into world headlines. It's not a good look. It's not acquitting itself well. And although you can come down hard on Mayor Hodges if you like, I think she's both the cause and the effect. And by that I mean she's right now the logical endpoint of what we've seen over the last decade of the Democrats moving increasingly to the left. These are not your father or mother's Democrats or liberals as you used to know them. In fact, they're not even the same kind of Democrats that you'll find in rural Minnesota.
Sure.
Twin Cities liberals, Twin Cities Democrats, especially in Minneapolis, are on the far left.
They sure are.
So what is it Democrats' problem? Is it Democrats' fault for this problem that's erupted in Minneapolis? Can you squarely say it's all the Democrats' fault?
Well, no, I don't think you can ever say it's all one group's fault, and I'm not even sure what we're identifying, candidly, as the problem. Do you mean the most recent shooting? Do you mean abysmal public school test scores, public safety, fear of safety in downtown Minneapolis? There's a lot wrong with Minneapolis, I'm sorry to say.
Absolutely. Well, a lot of this it looks from the outside like lawlessness. I mean, you had protests on highways where protesters were sitting down, blocking traffic, yet police not doing a whole lot about it. Yet in this shooting, obviously something went wrong. So is all this about, is it Black Lives Matter? Has the mayor bowed to that? And this is the same mayor that gave her State of the City address in a mosque. You talk about identity politics. Is she just unwilling to make tough calls in tough situations?
I think that would actually be the most succinct answer for what you're seeing. Betsy Hodges is, from everything that I hear, a very nice woman. She follows me on Twitter. Hi, Mayor. But she's singularly incompetent in dealing with the real demands, which at times requires you to stand up to your own constituents or your own voting bloc when they go off the rails. As a result, she's buffeted around by any number of forces.
John, were you encouraged that the mayor had asked the police chief to resign? Was that encouraging for you?
Well, you know, the bar of expectations in Minnesota is very low, especially for Republicans or conservatives. They're not quite the same thing here. And so I didn't see any particular sign of encouragement. The chief of police, Janie Hartow, pretty much had to go, and so there was no real surprise when Betsy Hodges made a virtue out of a necessity.
Interesting. Also in Minneapolis, Trump supporters accosted at a rally and nothing done about it as well. So it seems like a lot of one-sided politics in Minneapolis. John Gilmore, thank you very much for being here this morning.
Thanks, John.
Thank you for having me.